Hello and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Sharmeen Ali. We are going to be discussing today all this recent spate of discussion and back and forth statements going on concerning CPEC between the United States, China and Pakistani authorities. Most recently, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Geng Shuang made a statement saying that Alice Wells, who's the Assistant Secretary of State for South Asia, her remarks about CPEC and the US concerns about it being a debt burden in the future for Pakistan. He said that this is along the lines of it's the repetition of old slander that has been going on against the China-Pakistan economic corridor. And this is again all along the lines of the entire Belt and Road Initiative of China, which is there to bring greater connectivity all through Central Asia, Europe, Asia, South Asia, and the Southeast Asia regions, and the concerns that the United States have had regarding this. Now, Pakistani authorities, senior officials in Pakistan have also responded to this equally so and defended how they wish to go forward, and they also understand how important it is, how crucial it is for Pakistan's development. And naturally, in 2013, when Pakistan was facing a huge electricity crisis, energy crisis, China was there to start energy projects when very few countries were willing to invest in Pakistan. Pakistan was struggling to come out of its problem of terrorism that it was facing. It was in the midst of the war on terror and all the repercussions due to that. So China has come to Pakistan's aid very strongly in the past. So Pakistan is going to continue on these projects. So we're going to be talking in detail about this with our guests in our studio today. We also are going to be talking about how Kashmir now is in its fourth month of lockdown and internet blackout. We have seen how the plight of Kashmiri people, the detentions, arbitrary detentions of people over there, the killings are going on still. And now it's not just Pakistanis or Kashmiris raising their concerns about the situation in this region. We're seeing an uproar in the entire world. We're also seeing Kashmiri leaders who are, inside Kashmir, inside India, who are concerned about what's going on in Indian-occupied Kashmir. One of them is a BJP leader, former BJP leader, Mr. Yashwant Sinha, who was also former finance minister, who is saying that the situation in Jammu and Kashmir is not normal and that it's going to get worse. And we also saw this topic being debated in the Congress in the United States, and the concerns over there amongst lawmakers and Kashmiri Americans, everybody heard that, and the very strong response about how the internet blackout has to be removed and that international observers, neutral international observers, have to be allowed in that region to see what is actually going on and interact with the people over there. So we're going to be talking about that on our program today. We have with us as our guest in the studio today Madam Farida Faisal, who's been frequently on our program before. She's a very senior economist and brings a whole lot of insight about the economic issues in the country. Thank you so much for joining us again today.
Thank you very much.
So, Ma'am Farida, I want to start by saying now China's Belt and Road Initiative, it's a very sort of a grand project. It includes about 60 plus countries,
yes.
And China has put more than $1.3 trillion into
yes.
these financing of these projects. It covers Central Asia all the way to Europe. It covers the south of Asia. It covers Southeast Asia, and the entire region. It brings connectivity, and the countries which are involved in all of this, they are seeing a lot of their economic solutions come up through this, and also it covers 2/3 of the world's population in all these countries that the Belt and Road Initiative covers. 75% of the global energy reserves are in this region, and 55% of the world GDP. So naturally, there's going to be a lot of comments and concerns or whatever coming from all over the world about this, the length and breadth of this entire project, for which Pakistan, CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is a flagship project. So your comments on this, ma'am?
Well, you see, Sharmeen, at the moment, in terms of being, having a superpower in the world, it used to be balanced between the Soviet Union and the United States. And then, for let's say a couple of decades, United States became the only hegemonic superpower in the world. So it became a unipolar world. And then again, the power shift now is towards the East, and China is rising as the new Eastern power. Of course, the current, superpower of the world finds it, it is difficult for them to understand the rise of China at this point in time. And they want to counter it also. So certainly it is going to not be a very comfortable situation for the West, which has for a long time dominated the world, the world politics, the world economy. So this kind of balance really suits the East a lot. Because, in this BRI project, the best thing about this BRI project is that China is seeking a way of creating economic development through win-win situations. Now let us be very clear. It is in the interest of China. It is in the vision which the Chinese leader has of rising in the next 20 years, which is fair enough. Every nation in the world wants to go ahead, develop itself, reach greater heights. So China is doing it in its self-interest, but at the same time, the path that it is taking, it is a much better path than colonization, for example.
Right. It's more integration amongst all the countries of the region, economic integration. There's also access to finance for certain countries that didn't even have it before. And then it's Pakistan had a lot of needs that are being fulfilled due to CPEC infrastructure needs, energy needs, which at a certain time nobody was willing to come forward and help out with that.
If you look at it now from the Pakistani perspective, for us, this is simply an investment opportunity. We are an investment-starved country at this point in time. We were in the past, and still, if you look at our FDI rates, I mean, honestly, we do need as much interest and as much, greenfield investments from the other parts of the world as possible. So, I mean, if China is investing, that suits Pakistan. If another country invests, even that is fine. But the beauty of the BRI project is that it is inclusive project. It does not exclude anyone.
Exactly.
And what Madam Alice Wells, the the only objection I have to what she observed was that, I mean, why would Pakistan be suggested to exclude one country at the expense of another? We can decide to, open up our country for investment for, foreign investors from all countries. May that be the United States or may that be China. So we will find out on a project to project basis what suits us, and that is how we are going to, ensure that our own national interest, it is supreme.
Yes, exactly. And China came into Pakistan as an investor and to start this project back in 2013. At that time, Pakistan was facing many problems as far as security was concerned. All the burden that Pakistan had to bear on the war of terror. We had a security issue, and a lot of countries were not willing to come and invest at that time in Pakistan, but China was there. Also, we were facing a problem of corruption, which deterred a lot of foreign countries from coming and investing in Pakistan.
But you see, for China also, you must understand, Sharmeen, going through this economic corridor and using the Gwadar port, it reduces their maritime, costs by a third. So, I mean, obviously, it's in their interest. And that is why I suppose
it's mutually beneficial.
It is mutually beneficial, and that is the way, international relations work.
Right.
That whatever is mutually beneficial for two countries, then they can cooperate with one another. But China never had a problem when we went to the IMF, because we had a financial gap and we decided to approach the IMF. China did not warn us that you should not be going there for the 22nd time. You saw, because that is the decision which the Pakistani authorities have to take, given our own circumstances and our own macroeconomic issues. We can decide and work with any country which we we believe
Absolutely, and it's not just
is
China.
useful for our own purpose.
Absolutely. It's all just to bring into perspective what benefit this project, this Belt and Road Initiative is going to bring to the entire region. You have countries like Kazakhstan who can't fulfill their food requirements and vegetable requirements. They're getting access because they're a landlocked country, so they're getting access to that much needed food. You have countries like Brunei who have oil and gas, but they don't have pipelines, so China is going to be involved in that. And obviously that's benefiting Chinese companies as well. So
Absolutely.
it's mutually beneficial and it's all inclusive, as you were saying earlier.
This is a project which encourages trade. Whereas, you know, since this new government in the United States, we see it has much more inward-looking policies, America first kind of slogan, and as far as China is concerned, they have an active trade war going there.
Yeah.
In many other countries of the world, you can't say that it is anti-trade, but it wants trade on its own terms. I mean, that is the kind of thinking that is coming out of Washington at this point in time. But on the other hand, if you look at the Chinese model, what they say is that, okay, we want to enrich our own companies, but we would like to do that in a way that the local economies also opportunities are created there.
Yes.
Now, Sharmeen, at the end of the day, it is our own responsibility that we monitor the way the Chinese companies are operating in Pakistan. I am not saying that they are, operating outside the, boundaries of law inside this country, but where can we leverage our own interest? Yes, we can do that. But for that, it is important that first you let these companies come in, negotiate your terms with them.
Right.
You know, a negotiated CPEC is very much in the interest of Pakistan.
Absolutely. Well, we know that out of $74 billion worth of Pakistan's debt, only 4.9 billion is CPEC-related debt. And the Chinese ambassador also said that if Pakistan is not able to pay back on time, then we will obviously not force, put pressure for them to do so at that particular time. And also, he said that the Chinese spokesperson for their foreign ministry has said that CPEC projects have contributed from 2 to 3% of Pakistan's growth. So that's significant because Pakistan's growth had significantly slowed down. And also the loans that Pakistan is getting from CPEC loans, CPEC-related loans, their terms are about 20 years and relatively low interest rate, about 2.3%. So it seems as if it's worked out, and like you're saying, better negotiation can always take place.
Exactly. What you see, this is, I suppose, the same rate of interest which you will get from multilateral institutions like, for example, the World Bank or Asian Development Bank, from which we are taking loans, and we're very comfortable in taking loans. The only point here is that usually the CPEC loans, they come through the Chinese companies themselves, which is good. Look at it as a greenfield investment, as a real investment. And later on, I suppose, that will open up their supply chains in Pakistan.
Right.
Then it will be up to the government to, to improve the ease of doing business within Pakistan and enter into their supply chains. And I'm sure that the Chinese companies themselves would find it feasible. They are extremely good business people. So if you give them a good business model, they will certainly react. And at this moment, even if you don't, till the time that you don't, have an active participation in the projects, even then, I think that the infrastructure which has already been built in the first phase, it is doing us, great service. But the second phase is going to be very critical. We must understand, Sharmeen, here, that the first and the second phase are different. This is not just about infrastructure.
Yeah.
It is also about agricultural exchanges, agricultural development. It's about industrial development. So the whole idea of the economic corridor is going to expand, and it is going to be an economic collaboration now.
Right, right.
So we need to, work out the details, get our, the special economic zones along this line functional, And that is how you can, make the best out of it.
Absolutely. So the U.S. ambassador to Pakistan, Paul Jones, he's also clarified that that Alice Wells's remarks were meant to generate a debate, he said, and that Pakistan has the sovereign right to make its own decisions. And he said that we don't expect everyone to agree with us or agree with every aspect of her speech. So it has definitely generated debate, no doubt. Everybody is talking about it now. But however, at the same time, certain things that Alice Wells said, that the U.S. companies who are private companies, they're government-owned companies, don't invest in international countries, but like their private companies such as ExxonMobil, Uber, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, they're all interested in investing in Pakistan. So also, according to our finance advisor, Dr. Hafiz Sheikh, his statement was, he said that all of this work that we're doing in CPEC and special economic zones is going to be successful if we attract people internationally, companies to come and invest. So, of course, and that includes America or any other country.
Given the improving, business conditions in Pakistan, many other countries would like to join this, CPEC opportunities, and there's no bar on them. There's no stopping them. So, I mean, if the Chinese companies are here, as I was telling you before, you can also have Pakistani companies. Then it is up to us to make the kind of investment and opportunities and also incentives, create the incentives for the SME sector in Pakistan. China is not stopping you from doing that. You see? So, I mean, sometimes there is a concern that maybe the Chinese company may be getting even a better deal than the Pakistani companies, but then that is something which can be negotiated, it can be talked about. Overall, saying that CPEC is not in the interest of Pakistan or that it is going to be a debt trap for Pakistan, giving that kind of feeling, then, you kind of think about organizations like FATF, which is, trying to corner Pakistan. You kind of connect the dots and you'd say maybe it's part of a larger conspiracy. But if it's so, I think Pakistan, there is a lot of consensus inside Pakistan. All the government as well as the opposition parties, all political parties across the spectrum, they are committed to making CPEC a success. And that is good for us.
And exactly, the opposition included Shehbaz Sharif, PMLN's leader, also made a very strong statement about how it's critical for Pakistan's development and how China has always come to Pakistan's aid whenever it was in need. And at this critical point in Pakistan's development, I think it's very important to strengthen all the partnerships that we have and to appreciate what China has been doing over here. But also, the finance advisor to the Prime Minister, Dr. Hafiz Sheikh, he has said that he has called for sort of a global awareness on CPEC, because to dispel all these misunderstandings and everything about what this is and all its opposition, a lot of it stemming from India. And then you're seeing how the Indian kind of narrative is playing in with what the United States officials are also saying. So greater awareness is needed about this CPEC.
Yes, I think, as I was saying before, that it is very important for Pakistan to understand that there's an active lobby working against its interest abroad. And that, kind of portrays CPEC as a geostrategic, project, which it is not actually. That may be a smaller aspect of China's long-term vision of itself, and every country has a right to think of it, to take its own development a scale higher. Certainly when it sees that the cost of labor inside China is increasing, how is it going to sustain its long-term growth? Then it sees outside. It's fair enough. That is what countries do. They increase. They think of their own strategic interests in the long run. And Pakistan should be doing the same thing. You see, at the moment, what we need is a long-term strategy where we say that it is not just the firefighting, it is not just the economic discipline which we have to restore, rather we have to look for growth. Our growth figures are seriously very low, alarming, and that too, you see, unfortunately, the unemployment situation, we have to deal with all these things, and we can't just be dealing with them with short-term strategy. We have to look at it in the long term, and CPEC is a long-term project.
Yeah.
So this, along with other projects which can be inbuilt and cross-linkages can be created, connectivities can be created.
Right.
That is where the real productivity enhancement opportunities lie.
Absolutely. So a lot of work needs to be done in all of this, especially about creating awareness about what is actually happening within this project and how beneficial it is to both countries, because naturally there's no nefarious intent where this particular project is concerned. It's not excluding anybody. It's just for the mutual development of both the countries, economic enhancement. And of course, we'll have a lot more discussions about this topic because it's an ongoing thing. So thank you so much, Farida Faisal, for joining us again on our program. Stay with us, viewers. After the break, we're going to talk about Kashmir in it's still under lockdown and internet blackout, and we're going to be talking about that more because there are more developments happening all the time, and it's very important to keep remembering our Kashmiri brethren at this time. Please stay with us. Welcome back, and now we're going to discuss about the Kashmir situation. The situation in Indian occupied Kashmir has not changed as of over 116 days now. It's still under lockdown. The Kashmiri people are still in their homes, and their internet is still blacked out. Also, you're still having arbitrary random detentions in the valley, killings and disappearances of people going on arbitrarily. And also we're still hearing reports of gross, massive human rights violations, especially with women, and rapes where that's concerned. It's still a very, very grim situation in Indian occupied Kashmir. And also we know that there are no international observers or neutral persons who are allowed in that valley to see or visit or speak to people and find out what's actually going on over here. A 5-member delegation of an Indian delegation led by Union Minister Yashwanta Singh was also prevented from moving beyond Srinagar over the weekend. And Mr. Yashwanta Singh is a former BJP leader, and he's a former finance minister, and he took a 5-member delegation called the Civil Society Group Concerned Citizens. He took a civil society group called Concerned Citizens Group to Indian occupied Kashmir, and they were denied meeting with anybody over there, and he said that the situation is not normal as well. So this is not just Pakistan and Kashmir voicing our concerns, it's also Indians now and their leaders who are also beginning to show some serious concerns about the situation there. We're going to speak about this with our guest in our studio who's with us, and it's Mr. Raja Faisal, who's a senior journalist and frequent participant in our program. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us again. And so speaking about now the situation in Kashmir, we're seeing that pretty successfully Pakistan has managed to voice the Kashmiri people's plight in Indian-occupied Kashmir around the world. We've seen that it's being discussed in the US Congress. We've seen that Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib has initiated a resolution in Congress about this. And what's going to happen after that, we're still yet to see, but we also saw the Tom Lantos Commission speak about this in great detail and show their concerns about access being granted to Indian-occupied Kashmir and also the lifting of the internet blackout. So your comments about this, sir?
You know, it's not about Pakistan's stance on Kashmir. Pakistan's stance on Kashmir, it has been, you know, very significant throughout. And right now, you know, Ambassador Akram, he has been playing an excellent role in there, and recently he spoke in United Nations as well, highlighting whatever is going on in Kashmir. But the problem is there are double standards of the world. I mean, world is having some kind of double standards. When it came to East Timor, they were crystal clear what they wanted to do, they executed. When it was South Sudan, whatever it was, they executed it very well. Right now, we have two problems in this region. I mean, one of the problem is very long-standing problem, which is, you know, Kashmir conflict between two giants of this region, Pakistan and India.
Yeah.
You know, and the other one is Western China. And ironically, Western China's conflict is not a conflict at all. You know, it's just their own internal matter, which is not of that magnitude that somebody would be highlighting it. But still, Western media, still Western countries, all they're talking about is Western China. Why? Because they know that they have something to talk about China. Though it is not a problem at all. Nobody is talking about Kashmir, reason being they have their own you know, trade goals to achieve. They have their own trade you know, agreements with India, which are actually stopping them to you know, talk about or highlight Kashmir in a way that can actually give Kashmir you know, prominence on the larger scale. And that is what the problem is. I mean, to me, I think there are double standards. No matter how hard Pakistan has tried in the past and still is doing, world still would be, you know, odd about it. And I don't know why.
Right. Okay. So now I just want to bring up now this. The Indian Consul General to New York has said in a gathering that India plans to build settlements modeled after Israel for returning the Hindu population to Kashmir. And he said his exact remarks were, if the Israeli people can do it, we can also do it. Just watch this video that we have for you.
The Kashmiri culture is the Indian culture, it is the Hindu culture. I feel as much, you know, Kashmiri as anybody else. You know, किसी ने अभी कहा कि वो सुनंदा ने कहा कि Kashmir is India. None of us can imagine India without Kashmir. And अनुपम जी कह रहे थे कि हम लोग इंडिया में सोचते हैं सब के बारे में, सब धर्म में, सब मंदिर में जाते हैं, लेकिन unfortunately not everybody thinks that way. I think we made the strategic blunder that, you know, we thought that everybody is thinking like us. Everybody is not thinking like us. We should start thinking like others, and I think then only we will be able to beat them in their game. I think we have to do that, and I think that thinking is now coming. It is, we have never remained.
We just saw this video that the Indian Consul General in New York was referring to how they're going to resettle Kashmiri Hindus back into Indian occupied Kashmir in the form of settlements similar to Israel, and how he said that if the Israeli people can do it, we can do it as well. And to this, Prime Minister Imran Khan responded very strongly. He says that this shows the fascist mindset of the Indian government's RSS ideology that has continued the siege of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir for over 100 days, subjecting Kashmiris to the worst violation of their human rights, while powerful countries remain silent because of their trading interests. So, sir, your comments about this, the Indian Consul General and Prime Minister Imran Khan's response to this?
You know, Consul General Chakrabarti, he's from New York, Indian Consul General. I think it is on behalf of India, he has actually confessed to the crimes or to the future crimes they have in their mind. It is a confessional statement, and this should be taken account of. The whole world should take a note of it, that this is what their plan is, and they have literally confessed that why they abrogated Section 370 35A, because this is what they had in their mind. They wanted to create, an Israel-like situation in this region.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
and this is what they want to do, and they have already started, implementing it. And he has confessed in this video as well that this is what the plan was, and now they have started working on it. And the pundits, they should not be worried about it. It's not about the pundits. You know, pundits, they belong to Kashmir, and even Kashmiri Muslims, they accept it. Though Kashmiri Muslims, they are in majority when it comes to segment of the population, but they accept the existence of the pundits and they welcome their existence
to live as neighbors.
Exactly, as their peaceful neighbors. And there are so many pundits who are actually voicing against Article 3, abrogation of Article 370 and illegal annexation of India of Kashmir. They are voicing against it. But the problem is, it's not about the pundits. It's about India want to legitimize their criminal activities in Kashmir, and that's what it is all about.
There are Kashmiri pundits who feel that their pain or whatever they went through is being now used in the wrong way by the BJP government in order to achieve their means to go and just take over the region and cause human rights violations against the Muslims over there. And they don't wish it to be that way. They want to coexist.
They are using pundits as zeal against any of the narratives which are sane narratives which are being built by other countries and including Pakistan as well. So they are using them as a zeal, saying that we are doing it because pundits, they've been made homeless from Kashmir because a conflict is going on in there. Whereas even if you take the examples of freedom fighters, I mean, freedom fighters, while Burhan Wani, once he stated that if the pundits and the Hindu pilgrims, if they are coming to Kashmir for their religious things, we would welcome them.
Definitely.
And if they have security sort of problems, we will secure them. He offered that. And this is what this is what the problem is. I mean, they were the ones who are the freedom fighters, and they are being tagged as terrorists, which is not the case.
Exactly, because it's part of Article 1 of the United Nations Charter, that the right to self-determination and the right to bear arms to achieve that self-determination. So, sir, let me ask you this: where does the line between trying to gain self-determination and the term terrorism, where do they overlap? Where do they cross? Because one person's struggle for independence and self-determination is labeled by another as militancy or terrorism.
Sharmeen, it's all about media. It's all about media. If somebody is getting funded by the Western world, elsewhere in the world, if somebody is getting funded by the Western world, of course the Western media would be siding with that, with that segment of the society who are actually fighting for their right of freedom, you know, and they would be considered as freedom fighters. Whereas anyone who hasn't got the backing of the West and who has, for any reason, and the Western media is not behind them, of course, they would never be considered as freedom fighters. They would be taken as, you know, some kind of warlords and somebody who's actually trying to destroy the world and, you know, terrorizing everyone. You know, that's what the case is. It's only about it's the thin line between being on the side of the Western side and being on the left-hand side. It's just about what Western world has to do with them. Absolutely. And with Kashmiris, of course, when it comes to Kashmir, the conflict of Kashmir is between India and Pakistan. And of course, the Western world, they have, you know, trade agreements going on with India, and they look upon their trade more than human rights. And that's what is happening in Kashmir right now.
Right, absolutely. And that's also something, the point that Prime Minister Imran Khan also keeps on making, that don't just look at it as a sort of an economic interest matter, but look at it in the sense of the human rights situation. Now, the Indian government, we were just talking about how their use of the word terrorism, how they misuse it and they make false claims about it in order to justify what they're doing in their region. The Indian government covered up their entire revocation of Article 370 by saying that Article 370 is responsible for terrorism. Yet now, after it's been revoked, they're not allowing Indians, neutral Indian observers themselves, let alone outside neutral observers, to go to the valley because they're saying there's a threat of terrorism. So they've contradicted themselves where that matter is as well, because if that revoking of that article was going to stop terrorism, they're still using terrorism as an excuse over there.
Sharmeen, you know, in past, India, especially RAW, they have been staging false flag attacks. Uri and Pulwama attack, they were, you know, they are the prime examples of it. They created it, they staged it just to malign the freedom struggle going on in Kashmir. And they just wanted them to events to use against Pakistan, and we you know, saw earlier this year, just because of their own attacks on themselves, what they did is, you know, they tried to, like, you know, bash Pakistan, and they illegally entered in Pakistan, and they you know, bombed a few of the trees. And as Prime Minister said, still we are sad. Why? Because we don't want to lose the trees in Pakistan. So they went back and they nearly initiated you know, a war between Pakistan and I mean India, and it was highly irresponsible of them. They are constantly, you know, staging it by themselves, and that's why Prime Minister Imran Khan, when he went to UNGA, during his speech, he highlighted it, that in future coming days, if something
there'll be another false flag operation.
Yeah, there will be false flag attack. There would be hawks calls.
Yeah,
you know,
to divert attention from the Kashmir issue.
I think it was a blessing in disguise that Prime Minister Imran Khan highlighted this aspect. But because if he hadn't highlighted this, I'm sure by now we had quite a few number of you know, hawks calls from the Indian side that this has happened and Pakistan was behind it.
So it was a good deterrent that
it
Prime
was
Minister
very
said this
well
at the
planned,
UN
and I think the Prime Minister did an excellent job.
Right. Also, we're seeing the way the Indian government treats the Kashmiri citizens, the Muslims especially in that valley. It's a homegrown movement, as we've seen. It's been there over the years, and they have this tendency to blame Pakistan entirely from it. We saw that in all the hearings with the US Congress and all. There's one lady constantly just bashing Pakistan about it. Yet when you treat your own people the way they're treating Kashmiris right now, that is going to give rise to people taking up arms and fighting back, because they're pushed against a wall, and their leaders have warned against that also. Plus, the Indian government has created a political vacuum. They've arrested all the muftis and the Abdullahs, and the people don't have anywhere to go to have their grievances heard.
You know, even last week, one of the university students studying, I think it was New Delhi. He was studying he happened to be a Kashmiri student, and he got beaten badly by his fellow students just because he's Kashmiri and he had an argument with them.
Yeah.
You know, this is not about, that it's just every Kashmiri. It's about even the educated Kashmiris. Like, there are examples that the Kashmiris took arms who were even, like, they did the doctorate and they were PhDs and they took the arms just because they can see the plight of their own people. They can see the plight of Kashmiris. I mean, the miserable life it has been created by the Indian authorities in Kashmir. Of course, they don't want to live in that. They want to live in peace. They want to live with the freedom and they want to enjoy their rights, which are being enjoyed by the free world of, throughout the world. And they want that. And they are voicing against it. And when they are not being heard, of course, the only solution they have to it is that they take up arms and they fight for their rights. And even they know this, they are educated enough to know this, that taking up arms is not something illegal they are doing, because United Nations, it actually gives them a right to take up arms when they are not being heard by others. So they are not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, and it's an indigenous struggle.
Exactly.
So the former BJP leader Yashwant Sinha, who's also been the finance minister, he also said that stripping Indian occupied Kashmir of its special status and bifurcating the province into union territories, he's saying that it's causing psychological problems for the people over there of that region. And he's also said that when he took his delegation to Indian occupied Kashmir, they were not allowed to leave Srinagar. They were not allowed to talk to people. The people who were coming to visit them where they were staying were harassed by the police and security forces officials. These are Indians and who are concerned about the Kashmiris. They're having to go through all of this, and they weren't allowed to travel around. And he himself is saying that the government is hiding something.
You have talked about one Sinha and I would be talking about the other Sinha. General Sinha, retired General Sinha, recently he was on TV and in a live show, what he said was that the Indian army should be allowed to rape women.
Yeah.
And this is what is happening when there are a few of the very, very small number of saner voices in India talking about the human rights of the Kashmiris. At the same time, there are beasts sitting within them who are actually showing the world that India wants to actually, it wasn't about the Article 370. It was about about whole Kashmir. They just want to go through Kashmir and wipe it out.
Right, exactly. I totally agree, and we'll be talking about this more in future programs as well. Thank you so much, Raja Faisal, for joining us on today's program. And now I'd like to add this very interesting news and very good news that over 70 Pakistani British Pakistanis of Pakistani origin are going to be contesting in the UK elections on key seats. Now, these are going to be people who are going to be standing in the parliamentary elections that are to be held on the 13th of December of this year. All three parties are going to have British Pakistanis contesting in the elections, and there are going to be 20 British people of Pakistani descent who are going to be contesting from the Conservative Party, 19 British Pakistanis contesting from the Labour Party, 12 from the Liberal Democrats, 5 from the Brexit Party, and 4 from the Green Party, and 10 independents as well. So best of luck to them in the upcoming elections, and it seems that there is going to be a very good representation of British Pakistanis in the upcoming United Kingdom's Parliament. Thank you so much for joining us today on our program. That's all the time we have for today's program. We'll see you next time on Newsroom. Bye-bye from now. For now, from me, Sharmeen Ali, and our team.
PTV, I mean, you just close your eyes and think about PTV and you'll I mean, so many faces would flash in front of you.
Yeah.
That's what, but you can't do that in other channels. So PTV still, I believe, is like the daddy of all the channels here.
I think PTV has to make sure that on social media its presence, and there are ways, and they should focus on this way, because you see
That's what the future is all about.
Yes, because you see your smartphone is now a gadget.
Exactly.
Which is very important now. Every person uses for reading and watching contents and listening. I mean, now cards are very popular across the region. Audio cast and postcards, they're very popular. We had a meeting. Raza Rumi invited me. He has launched Naya.tv. It's a public sponsored by one.
Kamal and myself, we met him on the New Year.
Yes, he was telling me that even US and Canada, the television channels, there's a PhD thesis on this about the decline of television sets production across the world. But,
right, of course.
Yes, because you see, because of the smartphones.
Right.
So PTV has to devise a strategy for presence on social media, and it is very important for PTV.
How important is content? You want to add?
I would say because television is also broadcasting. There should be, to me, it's my humble opinion, voice is very important. Yes. No matter you go to smartphones, still whenever you listen to Zia Mohiuddin, he'll be Zia Mohiuddin.
Oh,
when you listen to Aslam, you'll be Anwar Maqsood has his particular style, everybody. So voice, we are not paying any attention to the basic thing that matters in all of it, and that is your voice. How much can you carry? How long can you speak? Look at our ages. Everybody who came from radio has the longest life in media.
No doubt.
Qavi, Muhammad Qavi Khan,
Uzma Gilani,
Khalda
Riyasat.
Shakil Ahmed, Khalda Riyasat. Everybody who came from Radio Pakistan or Hyderabad, Salim Nasir. I mean, there's hundreds of names and they're the best. Even in the films like Muhammad Ali Sahab and Mustafa Qureshi, and all of them who came from the radio have the longest. You must.
Aslam Azhar Sahab came from the radio. He came from the radio, and he was till his.
Aslam Sahab was working with a
multinational.
Cherry Blossom?
I think so. Working with a multinational. But you see, why? Why do they have? You see, we have to look into, like we're talking of past.
Amitabh Bachchan in India started from
exactly.
one of the biggest things.
Radio nurtures all the qualities of your voice. Aslam Sahab used to make Tariq Aziz and me walk every day and say, hold your breath for 15 seconds. And then tell me after a week, how long can you hold your breath? So that helped. Otherwise, at my age, I should be stuttering. Really, I'll be honest.
Right.
I mean, I'm
of
not
course,
a kid.
There's a lot of effort that goes into it.
So is it as important as riyaz is in singing?
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
So this is kind of riyaz.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Right. One thing I also want to ask before we end is that we've always heard, Faisal, I'm sure you'll also agree, that when we talk about anything, that people in the past used to work in this way, or that people before us were better. This is how things used to be, and this is what we had. Is that true for you also in terms of the seniors or people that you learned from? When they told stories, did they also say that things were better? And are they always better
They
in the
used
past?
to say that. Definitely. Aslam Sahab used to say, when we were there in government college and we used to do those best drama in GCDC. Similarly, in television, when we joined, Agha Nasir used to give us, tips. All the time used to give tips to us. He said to me, why don't you become a general manager? I said, no, I don't want to become. He said, you'll feel sorry when the bad general manager comes and he won't give you any program and you'll curse him. So better take this post and also do the production at the
And
same
also
time.
who came from good institutions, I mean, where there was there was a history of drama, like Government College. Why did it produce Zia Mohiuddin, Dr. Anwar Sajjad, Dr. Khalid Saeed Butt, Khaja Najmul Hasan, Khalid Abbas Dar, you know, all the rest of, how come these?
Mohammad Idris.
Mohammad Idris.
Yeah.
The
best,
so the best
English,
newscaster you could have had. It was because these institutions
Idris conducted
had
one program as well.
in English.
drama was very important, like Connect College. Why did it? Half of Pakistan television came from Connect College.
That was Naeem Bukhari.
You know,
So of
Naeem
course, that
Bukhari's,
goes to show that
Studio,
these
One.
people,
Studio One.
legends
Studio
that you've been mentioning are, of course, they have a history of, they have some
yes.
institutional background, some
That's-
platforms that actually help them grow.
I
and
remember
teach them.
Aslam Saab used to call Muniza Mizu, Salima Hashmi Chimi, Shoaib Hashmi Pappi, Kamal Nasir Baby. You see, a chairman calling, like, you see, it was like a family at that
Again,
point.
shows
Yeah.
that it was like a family. We're short on time, so we just have to conclude. But of course, I'm just going to ask each of you to give your message on the 55th anniversary, and also how can we still keep on upholding values in the future for PTV. I'd like to start with you, then we'll move there.
Okay, I have